All right, so welcome to week 2 of our book study, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. Today we're going to be covering chapters 4 through 6. And last week was a really great opening up and discussing why mindset is so critical and why when you want to do the right things, you find yourself doing the old habits, right? Because we learned how it's rewired into our brain. And it's like a hardwiring process, just like when you have data entry into a computer. If you give it a command, that's what it's going to do. A lot of it is unintentional wiring, and we learned about how many no's that we get through unintentionally, right? And so what was it, 148,000 no's growing up on average, and they are not intentional to wire us in the wrong way. A lot of it is done out of protection. So I find myself, I was saying last week, now, oh, don't sit up on the counter and don't run too fast down the hall. And, in a child's brain, it's wiring, no, 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 but we're really meaning to protect them. But we do need to be really mindful. One thing that you're going to hear me talk about today, and I want you to listen for it, that has stood out probably one of the most, is the concept behind overhearing. Because sometimes we think when we're being wired and we're listening and people, right, we're talking, we're taking in thoughts, we're taking in people, what people think of us is building our identity. When you overhear someone say something, that is equally as impactful to your subconscious mind. So you're going to hear me go through that a few times. And it stood out to me because how many times as a child do you remember standing just around the corner and hearing mom and dad talk? It could have been their finances. It could have been about you. Saying like, finally, they've gone to bed, like, right? They were just so whatever today. And so I know that I've been in that position. I know that my kids have been there. I know I need to guard my own mouth because I'm saying it out of exhaustion usually, not out of ill intent to, harm my child's mindset in the future. But so we're going to have a great time today. So if you have the book today, chapter 4, there's a lot to cover. But a lot of great stories, and stories really, when we can hear how it relates to someone else, that's really super impactful. So chapter 4 is called New Discoveries. So a little bit of science here. He starts out by saying neuroscientists have learned the brain operates very much like a personal computer. So like I was just saying, right? You sit down at a computer and you type in, do this, 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 and this. It will get to work figuring out how to do those things. It doesn't differentiate between, oh, that's actually not good for me, or, oh yeah, that's going to make me be able to handle more memory and to do more things and to be more effective, right? It doesn't differentiate. It literally just does what you tell it to do. And our minds are like that. Okay, our brains, of course, are still many times more powerful than a computer. The human brain only weighs about 3 pounds and looks more like a lump of gray cauliflower, right? It doesn't seem super crazy in terms of what it can all do, but divinely created. I don't know if science will ever fully understand the magnitude of what the brain can all do. So think of, when we're going to compare a computer to our brains, think of a display screen, okay, on your computer. So your display screen is comparable to our appearance and our actions. It's what people see. It's the outward, okay? So just like your computer's showing you, that's our outward. Our keyboard, or the input device, is our 5 senses. Anything we hear, see, taste, touch, smell, and the added one, anything that we say to ourselves. That's what you're inputting. It's equally as important. If you burn yourself on the stove, you have rewired yourself, don't touch, that's hot. If you tell yourself, I'm not worth anything, I'll never succeed, your brain will do the same thing. In our brains, a storage device is our subconscious mind. So it's like the hard drive on your computer. Messages we receive repeatedly, and the keyword is repeatedly, are recorded and wired into our subconscious mind. Do you know what a huge part of the problem is here for us? Is that we can't see the subconscious mind. We can't see what's there. You can't scratch it off your list. You can't take an inventory of what should be there and what shouldn't be there. You literally can't see it, but it has such an impact on directing your responses, your moods, your reactions, how you handle relationships, how you get to work each day, right? How much effort you're going to put in, but we can't see it. So he says what matters most is knowing that whatever is programmed in your own personal mental computer is permanently programmed. Okay, once it's in there, it's in there. Whatever programming you've received up until now is just as important and just as permanent as any program that has ever been typed into the most powerful man-made computers. Does that not make you go, oh boy? Okay. The reason we're reading this book, though, is because we actually are going to be able to do something about that. This goes hand in hand in line with a program that our church actually runs, right? About being able to renew the mind, being set free from these things. The concepts are the same. So you guys are going to come out of this. You're going to be able to share this. And right now we're just learning. So don't be totally set back like I'm always going to be stuck. You won't be, I promise. So the control center, page 20, the brain central control room. Okay, the part of the brain where commands are received and where all orders are handed in. Okay, the part of the brain that makes us feel good, work hard, get things done, or when not so well directed, it makes us slow down, fearing the outcome, and stop dead still in our tracks. So it can go one of two ways. And I love the fearing the outcome, because isn't that exactly what holds us back, whether it's in our home life or our personal life or our plexus business? It's the fear of the outcome. If you knew that you could succeed every single time you reached out, would you not reach out to every single stranger you passed by at the mall this afternoon? Right? If you knew that you were guaranteed that they were going to order, you were going to get that iPad or, whatever the current incentive is, or maybe it's just affirmation from your spouse or your kids, like, Mom, you're doing a great job. If you knew, you would do it. And so it's the fear of the outcome. So I have that circled, not just underlined, I have that circled. Imagine standing in front of your control center and it is a wall full of switches. And those switches literally within like seconds, not even milliseconds, have the ability to switch on and off. Okay, so your panel, your brain full of switches, and it has different sections. So one section, okay, of switches would control our moods. You'd have another one that controls your health. You'd have another one that's your hopes and your dreams. Another one that responds to how you act, right? How you respond. You've got all these different sections on your panel. Okay, you've got your attitudes, your fears, your belief systems are all there. Within a fraction of a second, some of those switches are turned on and off, and this happens all day long. It's on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. You don't see it happening. You don't feel it happening, except from, have you ever had a situation where you're having actually a pretty good day and then one comment or one action, could be from the kids, your husband, a coworker, a friend, all of a sudden it sets you off and flips you into a different mood? Has anyone ever had that happen? Yeah, because I have been noticing, I've been reading a lot of mindset and just emotional health books in the last year. And what I've come to recognize is exactly that. And the first thing I do now, and it's not always easy, but the first thing I do is I stop and I think, what in me created that response? Because I had that happen this week. I had where my sister, I haven't even told her this, so she watches this, she's going to be hearing it for the first time. My sister just had a brand new baby. We are 30 hours apart. I have not seen her held the baby yet. Her best friend and best friend's mom, who are very close to my sister, had pre-booked a trip months ago to make sure they were there to meet this baby held my sister. I didn't know they were coming. I also see in the background of a picture that they're there. My initial reaction was I got really hot and I felt myself getting really upset. Like, is that them? Like, what are they doing there? Instead of being happy for my sister that she was supported, I had this ugly come out, and I chose to not respond to the text messages when she says, yeah, that's there. They booked the trip a month ago. Because my first reaction was, what in me? What is wired in there that is making me even feel upset about that? Because I can book a plane ticket. I've just chosen not to yet, right? I can do the same. So there's something in the past. It actually stems from that ugly little thing of jealousy. So do you see where our reactions come out of, right? I'm jealous and I'm not holding the baby. It has nothing to do with how much they're loving on my sister, and it has nothing to do with my sister. So this book is helping me a lot too. So we have that. There's a network of tens of billions of neurons, neurotransmitters, and messages that are flowing through. We often talk about the gut-brain connection. It's the same idea. It's nonstop electrical pulses. They're just going crazy. Okay, the brain's responsibility is to keep us safe, okay, to keep us alive, to keep us safe. Someone with anxiety, your body will fight. You will feel like you're dying, but your body will make sure that you don't. Okay, it's all subconscious. Your body will fight for you. The brain's job is to keep you well. It automatically responds to every one, not just some, but every one of the unconscious electrical, chemical, mental, and physical commands that it's given. It does not choose. It doesn't sit there. It's like good and bad stress. Doesn't say, no, that one I'm going to let go. No, that one I'm going to act on. Every single subconscious thought going through, it is going to act on. And that's really, really crazy. So the bottom part, page 21, biochemical impulses called thoughts. We discovered, he says, the direct link between our own thoughts and the physical wiring of neural pathways and networks in the brain. The human brain responds strongest to a special kind of command, which is electrical pulses that also turn the switches in the brain on and off, and these are called our thoughts. So that's what's turning your switches on and off, your thoughts, not somebody else's, but yours. So you always hear say your life is your responsibility, your success is your responsibility. Are there factors? Absolutely, but it has to do with how you respond to them, right? How we react. Every thought that we think, every conscious or unconscious thought we say to ourselves is translated into an electrical pulse in the brain. It affects and controls every emotion, every feeling, every action, and every moment of your everyday. How many of you knew that already? I knew it, but it was no less shocking when I read it now. Okay, that is a big, big deal. I was reading this morning, and I have my husband, he's not a reader, he's going to listen to these recordings because I think that there's some things in our own life that have been wired from even his upbringing, right, and mine, and I'm starting to be able to recognize that. This could drastically change our future. We are young still, you guys. We all have a lot of time to change our lives, a lot of time. So whatever your thoughts are that you have programmed into your brain or have allowed, and the key word here is allowed, because some of them we think ourselves and we don't stop ourselves, okay, so we're allowing, but we've also allowed the thoughts and the words and the actions of other people to define who we are and what's been wired. I teach my kids now, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true, and it doesn't mean you have to accept it, because our brain will send some really ridiculous things across the screen. You got to choose if you're going to grab it and pull it, or if you're going to block and tackle. But that's up to us. And it's really important if you're a young mom on here, or you're a middle-aged mom and you've still got kids in the home, it is direly important that you teach your kids how to block and tackle those thoughts, because they will affect them as an adult. And so he says, from the day we are born, we receive a staggering amount of programming, millions of messages in our lifetime. Some of them is obvious, and some of it we're not even aware that we're receiving, because it's our environments, it's who we're around. The obvious programs are the comments, questions, and statements that get made to us directly. When we're young, we're told by our parents, other adults, what we can and cannot do. We're told what we're good at and what we're not good at, how we look. We're told what to expect, what we're supposed to believe in, how to act, and what to do or not to do. I tell my kids every night before bed, God made you good. I try to tell them 2 or 3 things. And then at the end, right before I leave the room, I say, God made you so good. I want them to leave my house knowing that they are good. I don't care what the world tells them. They are good. We learn to accept what others tell us, ourselves too, and in time, with repetition, it is wired in, because we learn to believe it. So it goes from hearing it, pulling it in, it's repeated, it's now a core belief. Isn't that crazy? Super crazy. Does anybody want to share a thought or two on chapter 4? Anything in that bit right there that you feel like just kind of turn on a light bulb? Ruth, do you want to add anything? You're good? Should we keep going?
Sitting here nodding. I see it. I've seen it in my life. I see it in my kids, and I'm so glad I met this book a couple years ago so I could get my kids started. The same as you, I started telling them no, because we naturally say negative things, and I'm like, no, think about what you're saying. No, write it differently. And my son Corey actually wrote out some positive affirmations and taped them up by his school area. Instead of telling himself that he wasn't good at writing, I love writing, whatever. But yeah, catch them now while they're young. I love it.
Yeah.
Can I just say, one of my boys in school he wasn't told, his younger brother was actually told one day in class that you're rotten just like your older brother. And this came out at our supper table one night, and my older son was actually having a really good year. And honestly, his face just fell. Like, I will never forget that moment. The way he said, I will never change anybody's mind about who I am. And do you know, so that was for him in grade 8. He never had another good school year. And even now, like, he's struggling. He's into not good stuff. He's struggling. But what I've noticed is when he comes to us, all I do is speak, Josh, you are amazing at this. Josh, your work ethic is this. I can't speak about some of the other things, but he just laps it up. So instead of going on him on the negative, like, you got to change this, all I do is I speak positive into him. We are so proud of what you're doing, in your work. You have such leadership abilities. And I'm seeing a change in that. But holy smokes, when all I can think back is that lady changed my kid's life really badly. And we didn't do enough at the time. We went in and we talked and said, this is not okay, and blah, blah, blah. But we did not, I did not realize the power of those words until probably 2 or 3 years later. And I'm going, this kid is not having another good year. He is behaving rotten.
That just gets my heart at the core. We just don't know which comment is going to stick, and that's the problem. You guys will recognize there's some things that stand in your mind. You will remember clear as day some things that people said, some good, some bad. Why do we remember with such clarity? I just told Kurt this morning, when I met Eva Schmidt for the first time, I'd never met her before. I was in Calgary doing a health and wellness night, brand new to Plexus. Eva stayed behind before going home from a trip. I have no idea what Eva said that whole evening, but there's one thing that for some reason, it was just like a booming clarity. And all she said was, I know you're going to do great things in Plexus. She didn't know me. She didn't know my character. She really did, we didn't know each other. Why did I remember that? Lots of people said different things in my life, but it's just some stuff. So let's move on to chapter 5. Okay, we learn to believe. We learn to believe. Okay, it's what, like when we're growing up, we learn to take on our parents' beliefs. It can be in finances, it can be in mental health, it can be in relationships, it can be whatever. We are learning all the time. So what adults tell us and what we learn to perceive about ourselves as children has an incredibly important effect on us. I like this story here. I won't read it here word for word, but he said that as a middle school student, he really wanted to be a part of the middle school band, really wanted to be a part. So he finally decided he was going to try out. Now the teacher gave him a piece of music that was, he called it an alien piece of music, never played it before. And he played it and he tried his darndest. He overheard. So the teacher didn't tell him directly. He happened to overhear the teacher telling someone else that he would never get anywhere with music, essentially. That he wasn't, not only was he not going to make the band, but he definitely was not going to get anywhere with music. And he says in here, he says it worked. I had heard from someone else that I had no musical ability, and I believed it. I accepted as fact that I had no musical talent. He said, though, finally, after 20 years, he learned that he had to believe in himself, and he gave it another go. 20 years later, can you imagine what he could accomplish in those 20 years? He overheard something. It was incredible. But here's an opposite example. Okay, this is about a little 6-year-old boy named Michael. Always spent time with an elderly gentleman neighbor. And this little boy, Michael, was getting ready for bed one night, all ready to go to bed. And this elderly neighbor stops by. And Michael's standing around the corner, like we were talking about before, and he overhears this elderly gentleman complimenting him to, I guess it was his mom. And he overheard being told to the mother that he was creative and that he knew Mike would grow up to do great things that were creative. He ended up being the dean of Disney University. And then he went on to do other great things in the world because he heard it wired in that comment. Someone said he is creative and he's going to do great things. That man probably had no idea how impactful that comment was. I read a book once that really talks about, and we're not just talking about kids here, okay? Like, I know many of us have kids at home still, but some of us don't. They're grown up. But just think of it grandkids, think of your spouses, think of best friends, think of anybody in your life. We all need to be appreciated and affirmed. Doesn't matter. Could be your parents, whoever. It was just interesting because we get programmed into, by what people think and say of us. And you just have no idea when that comment is going to solidify and be stamped into the wiring of what becomes. So super interesting. He went on to do really great things. He says, can you imagine the number of times a child has heard the innocent but thoughtless words, you'll never amount to much, or told, that sport, that career, that whatever. Just imagine what our eager and young open minds perceive and believe. I was told growing up that I would not amount to much of anything, not by my mom, but by my other surrounding family. I realized recently that my mom hasn't heard her motto, license plate says never give up. It is why I can sometimes be obsessive with accomplishing a goal because I've taken from my mom repeating over and over, never give up. On the flip side of that, I was basically told if you don't get a university degree, you'll be barefoot in the kitchen. I basically was going to waste my life. I've been put to tears by family because I didn't follow, what they thought was the measuring stick of success. Isn't it amazing how you can start to recognize some of that? So unconscious conditioning from others, okay? Some of our programming is obvious, but most of it is not. It's not always super obvious. We're like ships with countless captains, all seeking to direct us on our own courses for their own purposes, not even knowing they are leading our ships astray. It's not done intentionally. It's people having immaturity over their words. They don't have self-control. We always have a house full of teenagers. I've got teen girls. Our house, we always have friends over. And one thing that stood out to me, and I talk about it every time with my girls when they leave, they're sitting there painting their nails, doing crafts. Oh, it's going to turn out terrible. I suck at this, right? Like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do it. Or I'm going to mess it up again. Over and over and over, these teenage girls, and I'm sitting here listening, and I'm just like this the whole time. Every time they say that, they are wiring themselves. They are wiring themselves. So then I have to go back and recorrect to my girls because they are sitting there listening to it and taking it in. How many times can you hear, I suck at that, I'm going to mess it up, I suck at that. That is a common teenage girl thing. If you have teenage girls or granddaughters, pay attention. It is crazy. So he says, as long as you and I allow others to program us in a way that fits their choosing, we are without a doubt out of control. We are captive to the whims of some unknown destiny, not quite recognizing what hangs in the balance is the fulfillment of our own future. You are essentially handing the keys over to someone else. Do you really trust them that much? I don't. I used to trust too much, I think. I don't. We're on page 25, if you're following along. Don't hand the keys over so easily to somebody, make sure your circle is tight. Don't give them that power and that influence to speak over you because of some really crappy mindset that's been ingrained in them from maybe their circle of friends or their upbringing, okay? Because it does transfer over, which is going to be next week on the Zoom. So he says it made little difference whether the pictures of ourselves that we created were true or not. That's totally irrelevant, okay? Our experiences, our acceptance of what we heard from others and what we told ourselves became the foundation for the mental programming that directs us today. Not all of our past programming has been the wrong kind, though. There's also been some good. Just like my mom's never give up. We do tend to focus on the negative because 77% of it is bad, but we can't forget the 30% of those that have spoken really positively into our lives. So you could probably all raise your hand right now and maybe think of an aunt or a grandma or a mom or a dad. There's really specific things that you will remember that'll come to mind of when somebody told you something really positive and encouraging. And the reason that those are so bright is because there's not many of them. Does that make sense? They stand out more because it barely happens. And then we're like, oh, that one I'm hanging out to. It was like the comment from Eva. It's not that no one's ever said anything nice to me, but that one just has a bit of an extra shiny light bulb on it because the majority, go out today. Who's going out on errands today or who's going somewhere? Are you leaving your house today? I want you to tune your ear. This is your homework. I want you to tune your ear and I want you to eavesdrop today. I always tell my kids, don't eavesdrop, don't stare. I want you to eavesdrop today. I want you to pay attention when you're out and about to converse when you're standing in a line. I want you to listen to the people that are talking behind you. I want you to listen to the cashier or whoever talking to the person that's paying. I want you to, when you're passing by or if you're stopped, I want you to listen to what people are talking about. And I bet you guaranteed the most of what is coming out of their mouth is going to be like a wah, wah, wah. Okay, pay attention to that. Oh, I'm sick, or oh, I can't do that, or oh, this is that. There's going to be some really bubbly people out there, thank goodness, but pay attention to it. Do you promise me you'll listen? Can you do it? Listen to moms. Listen to your friends on the phone. Listen when you drop your kids off at a sporting event. Listen to the conversations, okay? Because we're going to start tuning our ear. If we don't recognize it, we won't be able to stop it ourselves. So, okay, that's to the homework. He says, at our best, we've been living with only part of our life's programming working for us, okay, the smaller percentage. Imagine what you could do if you could override those programs. Can you imagine it? Do you guys have a really great visual picture of what you want to be and could be? I'm not all about the money. If you know me personally as a friend, you're going to know that, but I'm going to tell you something. I always tell my kids I'm going to be a millionaire mama. Millionaire mama doesn't necessarily mean money. Sounds like it, and I'll be that too. But I always tell my kids I'm going to be a millionaire mama. I said, watch. Mommy will be a millionaire. Just watch. I have been programming myself for a long time. It's why I take on different projects, right? Do you know that most millionaires have 7 streams of income? It's just mindset, okay? It's just mindset. So we need to replace those old sets with a new refreshing set of beliefs. And that is where this starts to get exciting. We have to replace the barriers with a refreshing new look at life and what is in front of us. You get to start that right now. Okay, does not matter what happened in the past. There was a story in here of a lady who lost 120 pounds, and he asked this lady, how do you feel? And her answer was, like I lost 120 pounds. The mental weight that we carry around from some of these bondages is exactly that. It's mental weight. Can you imagine how much lighter you would feel if you could take off your shoulders some of those things that have just been oppressed onto you? He says, imagine losing even for one day all that extra self-doubt, all that disbelief that we carry in. Think of how fast you could run. It goes back to if you knew that everybody would sign up today that you talked to and they would be open to getting healthier. Could you imagine how light you would feel? You would probably be floating, right? We are bogged down with the feeling of I can't, and they're gonna this and they're gonna that, and what are they gonna think of me? That is heavy. That is exhausting. You were born with everything you need to live your best life. Okay, it makes no difference what you've thought or what you've done in the past. Today, we are going to leave that right here. You do not need to carry forward with any of that. Is it going to take some work? Yes. And mindset work can be a little trickier than pen to paper work because you can't see it. But we're going to leave all that old garbage here today on this Zoom. And you're going to start to learn how to rewire, reprogram. Okay, from this day on, you can if you choose, and you have a lot to gain from it. And that makes me really excited. You can choose right now, but you're going to have to choose every single day. I always tell people with Plexus, there's no magic bullet. This is not a quick fix. Okay, it's the same with mindset. It's going to take a daily decision. There's 27 men and women on here right now. You're not alone. Okay, there's over 20 people here right now that want to do the same thing. That's why we do this together. You're not alone. You can do this. It's going to feel hard some days, but you're going to get back up and want to do it some more. Do you guys want to hear another story? Okay, on page 27, there's a story about, a couple of men getting onto a plane. So imagine the scenario. You get onto a plane and relate this to your mindset. They're getting ready to get onto a plane that's going to be crossing the Atlantic to go to Europe. And one of them overhears some chatter, okay, between the captain, and they're talking about the onboard programming. And he overhears him say that 77% of the directions are going to control the plane in the wrong direction. Are you going to get on the plane? No. You're going to be totally fine to lose that money on that ticket. Because what's going to happen? You're either going to land in some place where you definitely didn't want to go, or you're going to, crash. And over the Atlantic, that doesn't seem very enthusiastic. So you're not going to get on the plane, but that's what I'm happening in our mindset, is that 70% of those commands are flailing you all over the place. And if you don't pull that in, you literally are allowing your life to be tossed by the wind. I'm actually speechless over that. It's crazy. We cannot wake up every day and just allow ourselves to be tossed by the wind. We have to get to the place where we are actually firmly choosing. People say rude and mean things to me all the time, just like they do to you. I had someone totally clean my ears out the other day on the phone over some stuff related to our business. I had to choose right then. I'm sorry they feel that way, but that has nothing to do with me as a person, right? When you've got 2 months of product in the cupboard and you're telling me you only ordered for 2 months, and you're telling me it's not working, that's not on me. That is a mindset of something else going on there, right? You got to choose. What are you going to take on? Are you just going to bless and release, upward and onward? That is not on me to carry, okay? I'm not saying being insensitive. I'm just saying you have to be really, really careful. Don't let it was Sonia Dudley and Helen McFadden that said, Sir Bucci, don't let a 5-minute moment turn into a 5-hour mood. I've had some 10-hour moods. I'm learning to not allow that to happen here as frequently anymore. What a waste of a day. Okay, what time is it? Okay, page 28, you can override almost any conditioning that you have ever received in any part of your life. It makes absolutely no difference who, where, what, why, or how you have been in the past. It makes no difference what you believed about yourself or what others may have believed about you. It makes no difference what circumstances may have been tossed in your lap. I could write and create a Hollywood movie based on my past. You guys would be shocked. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to determine your future. You can't change it, so don't camp out on it. You can put yourself in control because now it is your turn. Ready? This is your turn. I can't do it for you though. Okay, we can do it together, but I can't do it for you. But this is your turn. Okay, we are going to rewire, erase, and replace. Write that down. Rewire, erase, and replace, and it all starts with learning how to talk to yourself, hence the title of the book. It becomes clear that what was holding us back, defeating us, can itself be defeated, and you realize that an exciting new future is about to become available to anyone who is standing behind the wall, waiting to get through. Loved that chapter. Okay, rewire, erase, replace. Keyword though is replace, because you can pluck something out, but you have to put something back in to replace it. Okay, chapter 6, that wall we were talking about. So we are on page 31. All of us talk to ourselves all of the time. You just may not recognize it. Our self-talk may be spoken in words or unspoken thoughts. It can take the form of feelings, impressions, or even wordless physical responses like the clutch in your stomach that comes when we are surprised or afraid, or the rush that comes with excitement or joy. We are thinking machines that never shut down. Do you know that when you're sleeping, your subconscious is still at work? Your brain never ever shuts down. And so it's really important that we get some really good stuff in the subconscious, because while you're sleeping, things are still happening. Okay, most of our self-talk is unconscious. We're not even aware of it. How does that make you guys feel? You can just nod or shake or, isn't that wild? I had anxiety when I read this book for the first time. So if you're sitting here, like your knees are knocking a little bit under your desk or you're on your chair, that's normal, because I had a hard time. I was just like, well, if I can't see it or if I don't know what's going on, what if I'm not going to be able to change it? Am I actually in control? And I think that that is a really vulnerable place to be, and it's a really fair opinion. I think it's normal, it's natural, but like I said, I've read this book a couple times now, and it's just, my mom actually gave me a really messed up copy of this book when I was 17 years old living on my own. And she said, read this book. I didn't read the book. The pages were falling out. It was just, I wasn't in the space. I read a few pages. I didn't read the whole book. But I told my husband, I had this memory this morning. Mom actually gave me this book when I lived with my friend Tara. So my mom was onto something with her never give up thing. So she knew this already. My mom's not perfect, and she won't claim to be. But she had taken the beginning steps already, and she knew it was important. I am paying my teenage girls to read this. If you guys want to figure out how to get this into your teens, I'm paying my girls to read this book. Because if they can even take an eighth of what's in there, they're going to be further ahead than where they are right now, right? Because I've said some things that I need them to unwire. I just lost my page. So, chapter 32, every new thought you think has to have some old thought to stick to. So that's an interesting concept, because when you have a thought, I can't think of an example. I need some more pink drink right now. But if you have a thought, it doesn't just pop into there and float around unattended. It immediately sticks to another one, and they compound. So visually, just picture, you know those rubber band balls that kids make, right? You start with like tiny, and then another one attaches, and then another one, and now it gets bigger, and you form this huge belief, whether it doesn't matter what the topic is. So it has to have another one. Okay, it happens in a fraction of a second. Your brain will then send a message in response to that thought process. Okay, so the new thought is attached to an old one. They're now double the strength, and it will immediately send a reaction, and it will come out in some way, shape, or form. The more you think about anything in a certain way, the more likely you are to believe that that is actually how it is. Have you ever tried to have a conversation with someone? Depends where you are on the Enneagram. And you're staring at them and you're like, I don't even understand how you can think this. Like, that is just so polar opposite. It's not even true. And they are just red in the face and blue in the lips, and they are just like, no, this is the way it is. Have you ever had that happen? You're just like, where? Like, how on earth? That doesn't even make rational sense. How can you believe that? It's because of this exact thing here, where that one thought is attaching to another, and it's now developed into such a huge ball of rubber bands that they, even if it is totally wrong, it says in this book, if you enough times tell someone to turn the wrong way at a red light at a traffic intersection, they will do it. Science says that. They will do it. Does that now not sound like the most backward thing you've ever heard? So can you imagine? You talk a thing of being brainwashed. Okay. Who are your kids around? Who's your spouse hanging around with every day? Who are you hanging around with every day? If someone can convince you to turn the wrong way on a red light, that is like flippin' scary. But that's how our brain works. Understanding that makes it easy to see why it's hard to teach old dogs new tricks, change our mind, or unstick ourselves from ideas we are solidly stuck in. The longer we believe something, the harder it is to change that belief. The longer you have bought the thought, the truer that it is, and it's why we become even more passionate about, like, no, this is how it is, right? Because it just gets heavier and heavier. So top of 33, while most self-talk is either unconscious or goes unnoticed, some self-talk is glaringly obvious and not surprisingly clearly self-defeating. Are you aware of 1 or 2, 3 or 4 thoughts that you hear yourself? They're kind of rolling around in there. It could be about body image. It could be about your character. It could be about, I told myself for years, I'm not fun. I don't even know how to be fun. Someone must have told me at some point that I'm boring because I convinced myself that I'm not fun. I found out that I was pretty fun when I was able to go dress 80s, and we had a massive dance party at convention last year. I was like, who is that woman? And from that point on, it's like I rewired. I'm like, I actually do know how to have fun. And it was like fun on water. It was super fun. So I no longer tell myself, I'm like, actually, I think I have some blue personality in there somewhere. You just have to open up that box and don't let somebody's lies get to you. And if you weren't at convention last year, I hope you're coming this year because that was really fun. Okay, most of people who use negative self-talk are not aware of what they are saying. We're not stopping to think what's coming out of our mouth. Wouldn't it be super interesting if on your device, on your phone, if you had that in your pocket and you use that voice memo, you can record till the day is long on there. What happens if you would pop it in your pocket? The first couple minutes, you'd be really careful what you say, and then all of a sudden the kids would come and you'd forget. What if you recorded yourself for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30? Wouldn't it be interesting to play it back to see what's just coming out of there all the time? I think it'd be interesting. I might try it. If everything you tell yourself about yourself becomes a directive to your subconscious mind, then anytime you make a statement about yourself that's negative, you are directing that subconscious mind to make you become the person that you just described. Negative. Okay, there's a couple pages of example of frequently used negative self-talk. I want you to go through that list if you have the book, and I want you to circle the black circle of the ones that you hear yourself saying. Ruth is like, yes. There's so many. Okay, it could be, I'm so clumsy, I'm just not creative, sometimes I wish I was never born, there's just no way, that's impossible, why should I try, it's not going to work anyways, if only I was smarter, if only I was taller, if only I had more time, wah, wah, wah. There's a lot of them, and this isn't even like all of them. So go through there and really reckon, what are you telling yourself every time? You might have made it up yourself, or someone may have like put it in there and you just grabbed it. But imagine sitting down at your personal computer keyboard and typing any one of these directions into there. Okay, you're typing it into the storage. If you make a Word document or anything else, you are putting it onto the storage or the hard drive, right? You're doing the same thing with your thoughts. That's exactly what we do to our brain. And he says, no wonder things go wrong, and no wonder things don't work out right. Is it any wonder? So here's a story. I'm going to quick read it because I love stories. He says, one day I was having lunch. If you want to read along, page 36. Okay, it's called Living with the Results. One day I was having lunch with a friend in a coffee shop located in a large convention hotel. While we were waiting for our lunch, we were discussing negative self-talk and commenting on how we end up becoming a result of what we say to ourselves. During the discussion, a perfect example of that very thing happened. As our waitress approached our table with both arms filled with plates of food, she stumbled and dropped an armload of hot food on the table. and the floor in front of us and exclaimed loudly, "Oh, I am so clumsy." My friend and I just witnessed a firsthand example of the result of the simplest kind of negative self-talk. I don't know how many times before that waitress had told herself she was clumsy, but she had undoubtedly said it to herself often enough to believe it was true and to make it happen. Isn't that wild? Coincidence sometimes, not normally though. You guys think of any examples of something you might be telling yourself that actually plays out? Okay, another example. Okay, something as common of the problem of not being able to remember names. I won't read this one word for word. I've actually told that one to myself. Yeah, I can't remember names. Okay, so you're telling yourself, I don't remember names, so I don't remember names, so I can't remember names. Now you're someplace where you, it's really important to what, maybe it's a job, maybe it's family, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a trust relationship and you can't remember that person's name and you're like, but theirs, I am going to remember their name. What happens 10 minutes later? It's gone. Your brain doesn't be like, oh, you've been telling me for years that you don't remember names. Oh, but this one I'm going to remember. It doesn't happen that way. The brain, it doesn't have, it is programmed. So you can tell yourself all you want. How many of you have said, today I'm going to exercise? What happens by supper time, guys? Come on. You got too busy to exercise. Why? Because you've told yourself for how many years, I hate exercising. Oh my gosh, I hate exercising. I don't even have time to exercise. I hate exercising. What makes you think that today when you tell yourself, I'm going to exercise, that you're actually going to do it now? Because your brain is like, we don't exercise. Right? We don't exercise. So you will find the phone's going to ring. You're like, oh, I actually need to run to the store. Oh, I should do that load of laundry first. All of a sudden, it's end of the day, and you're like, I didn't have time to exercise. No, friends. You've been telling yourself that you hate exercise and you don't exercise, so your brain has found other things to keep you busy. Isn't that crazy? There's a verse in the Bible, right, where Paul talks about I'm going to find the exact reference and I'll share it somewhere. Why do I always do the things that I don't want to do? It's not enough to just say I want to be more outgoing, or I want to get to gold, or I wanted this, or I wanted that. It's the programming. And then people get so frustrated and they get depressed, and then they do one day of eating healthy, and then what happens? They slide right back into it. So it is craziness. So the human brain will do anything possible you tell it to do if you tell it often enough and strongly enough. It's a repetition. They say it takes 21 days to make a new habit, but only 3 days to break it. Isn't that crazy? Super crazy. I want to ask God when I get to heaven one day, why does that have to be so hard? Right? Why do I have to give this so much grit? Our internal programming mechanism treats anything we tell it with equal indifference. So no matter what I do, I just can't seem to make enough money. That's common. Okay. It actually says, I just can't seem to make enough money to make ends meet. Our subconscious mind says, okay, I'll do what you're telling me to do. I'll make sure that we can't make ends meet. Crazy? Is that why only 3% of people, they say in general, we're talking about mass population, only 3% find success? The systems aren't complicated, right? It's not like they weren't born with something. People are dying for books, right? How do I be successful? How do I do this? How do I do that? There is only one thing. It's actually only mindset. That's it. There's no difference. It's mindset, but such a small percentage of people are actually willing to be aware and willing to try to rewire that they unintentionally get hung up. So that's why my hope is that this book, when we chose this book, can you imagine if we can set our minds free, the potential that we have in life and in business. So just at the end on page 38, what time is it? Oh, we're doing good. Unless we change the programs we gave to ourselves, the ones that told us we can't seem to earn enough money, our subconscious will successfully accomplish its programmed task of keeping us earning less than we would like. Had we given it the right programming, that same subconscious mind, instead of keeping us poor or of average means, would just as gladly have made us rich in every way. This goes so much beyond finances, though, right? So much beyond finances. It's just when you have drilled into yourself over and over, finance is a big one, but it literally can be, I'm shy, I'm shy, I'm shy. I don't like to talk on the phone. I don't like to talk on the phone. I don't do that. I don't like being in groups. I don't this, I don't that. Your brain will keep you out of those situations, and that's what your holdback is. We all have them, right? Anything anyone would like to share? Ruth, I just realized you say Eva Schmidt on your Zoom.
I know. I had logged in to do a live webinar months ago, and I just never logged out. For me, what you were just describing is homeschooling, because I found myself, I catch myself being negative, like, oh, I'm just not a good homeschooling mom. You know, somebody else, those people are all doing it way better. You know, we're not going to have time today to do everything, all of those negative things. And I started a list to rewrite that, like wake up in the morning, like today, my kids are going to get an excellent education, and, you know, we're going to learn so much, and I love homeschooling, and because that's what I need to do for me. Yeah. And the rewiring thing that you were talking about, it made me, because I have a baby right now. I know Luann does. I don't know who else is on here, but like I see this and it's so fun, because Lexi right now is at the age of making all those connections. Like we have 2 dogs. And she loves the dogs. Now, anytime I say dog, we can be reading a book, we can be out somewhere, and she just hears the word dog and she goes, woof, woof, you know, because she's made that connection. And same with other things. If we say round and round, she looks up for a fan, or if she hears somebody say yay, she claps. And I just think like, I don't want to mess it up with her. Like I want to, all of these connections that I'm helping her make, I want to be mindful and intentional about making it positive. So I'm going to keep this close by.
So true. Anyone else want to share?
Well, it's been a huge blessing to me. I'd like to just share a little bit of last week. It said these coaches so fast, and why signing up so many great leaders. And I was like, wow, that's totally a shift for me. But I started asking those questions, and since then I've signed up 4 new ambassadors, and I have 4 more yeses for this month. And I have a whole list of maybes. I talked with Jake yesterday, and he said, you ought to shoot for that free plane ticket. So I'm asking myself, how did I get this free plane ticket so fast? And I'm just blown away. I can fit it to so many parts of my life, like marriage, relationships, children. I mean, it's just transformational. So I just want to thank you for sharing and tell everybody this is real stuff. It's not just voodoo. We can speak things into existence or
It's just, that is just so awesome, Luann. That's exactly what it is. You know, it's just, Paige was on here. I don't know if she's still here, but Paige taught me a line like over a year ago already. And if you know better, you can do better. Right? And that's why we're here together. We're like, you can't control some of those past things, but once you start to know better, now you can recognize those thoughts, and now you can take the steps. And if you don't know better, which is why we got to get all our people on the Zoom here, share the links with them. Try to really somehow encourage them to be on here with you, because can you imagine the changes in their lives? You know, if we start verbally saying all the time and how important these Zooms are, how important, over and over and over, all of a sudden they're going to be like, that must be really important, right? And so I encourage you to do that this week, and, you know, every week, but to see who you can bring on here with you next week and who you can share the link with, because it's powerful. And it's like she said, it's nothing bizarre. It's brain science. It's biblical, you know, they go together. And I think I don't know, I can't imagine. We're going to be in this book for 2 months, but imagine where we are going to be 4 and 6 months from now in different areas of life. It'd be really neat to reconvene and to go back and be like, in 6 months, right? Where are we now? And I would love to see what's all going to happen. So, okay. Well, that was fantastic. We are going to be doing chapter 7, 8, and 9 next week. So read to the end of page, I believe it is 65. Okay, we'll do our best to get through those. Just try to stay on track so that we can do this as an 8-week study, because there's so many other good ones, right, that we want to get to. If all of a sudden in those next 3 chapters, if there's there's one chapter we might need to camp on a little bit, then we may just, right, add a little bit of that into the next one as well. But read up to there so that you can be ready to go. If we are, come back with questions. If you have things that are standing out during the week, discuss with each other, share your wins. That's how you're really going to be able to maximize. But until then, I will see you next Saturday again, and wishing you guys an amazing weekend. And thank you for making this important. That's super special to me. So have a great weekend, guys.
You too.